You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Hey Ramblers, today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Try it or we'll tear your soul apart.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the podcast about all things horror. I think you guys know that by now. I would hope so, at least. As always, it's this guy Les, joined by the incomparable Stephen White. But today, we have another guest with us, and pretty excited. I love when we have guests on the show, and this one already seems so pleasant this morning, so I'm thankful for that. Stephen, you know you're better at this than I am, so why don't you give the audience a little sneak peek into who we're talking to today?
All right. Well, joining us today in the hallowed halls of horror is a Norwegian-born, London-based actress who is a rising talent with an impressive array of skills. Not only is she lighting up the screen with some solid acting chops, but she's also behind the camera trying her hand at writing, producing, editing, and even directing. And if that wasn't enough, she could probably choreograph a fight sequence that flowed as elegantly as a dance number from West Side Story. Now, she will soon be seen in the upcoming horror flick, The R.I.P. Man, fighting for her life against the title character who has a very interesting dental condition, to say the least. So please welcome to the show, Jasmine Kheen.
Hi. Oh my God, I'm so excited to be on.
Well, thank you for joining our humble little show. I'm excited to talk to you about your career, and especially this movie that's coming up, because the R.I.P. Man looks interesting, to say the least. I've taken a look at the what was it? It was a Kickstarter.
Yeah, so it's on Indiegogo, where we have the project, and so we have they have shot sort of a concept for it. So they shot the first couple of scenes. So if you're interested in having a look at that, to get a little taste of what the movie will look like, it's just up on the Indiegogo. But yeah, no, it's a super exciting project to be a part of. You're only cast about a couple of weeks ago, and we've already had our first day of shooting, and so far it's going really well, I think. We'll
definitely put links down below for anybody who wants to check that out, so if you're interested in maybe chucking in a few bucks, you can do that. But let's talk about starting how you got into acting in the first place. Was this a passion you had from the start, or is this something that kind of grew on you as the time went on?
I feel like it's, kind of a complicated story, a long story. So basically, when I was in kindergarten, my mom, she's a single mom, and she studied theater. And so sometimes she wouldn't have a babysitter for me and stuff, so I would tag along at the age of 5, 6. And then I remember watching her in her lessons act. And I think subconsciously that just stayed with me, that I wanted to do something creative. And I wanted to do something within theater or film or something like that. And then got to my teens, I used to dance a lot. I did some children's theater stuff and did some musicals in my teens as well. And I was very conflicted whether to go join the army or go study acting in London. And then I ended up getting into acting school here, and I just got super excited about it. So I decided to go that route and just go for it,
So how do you come to that conclusion? Because those are two completely different paths. I mean,
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, that's why I kind of want to get into like horror acting and action and stuff like that, so I can get some of the, action side of life, I guess. I think, with the army, it's a lot about discipline and structure and pushing yourself. And you can see a lot of similarities with that in acting, because it is a lot of discipline, it's a lot of structure. Not to say that acting as like honorable as like the army, but there are a lot of similarities in the way that you have to like keep pushing yourself further and further and further and push past your comfort zones. And also, I was living in Spain at the time, and I never received my letter because there was some like mix up with the address. And so I feel like that was sort of the universe being like, yeah, no, you're going into acting. And I'm happy I did.
not to equate them as the same, because I agree. I mean, you kind of look at them as being in the army and acting would not really say that they're similar. However, I would argue that some actors have done work that is impactful to people. I mean, I've heard so many stories of actors, or mainly, I won't say just mainly voice actors, but I have heard those stories from people who say that they got to meet their voice actor, their hero. They voiced their favorite Winnie the Pooh or Mickey Mouse or whatever, and they got to meet them. And then they hear those stories. You saved my life. You saved my life. So I wouldn't discount that, because you could have a performance one day and someone's like, that touched me, that empowered me in some way. So don't discount it. That's just something to think about,
Yeah, I mean, that's all you hope for as an actor or as a filmmaker. You want to, reach someone and have them be able to like relate, or feel like they're not alone about something, or like what they're going through, or how they're experiencing life is like normal. And also like sort of get your mind off of the gruesome things that are going on in the world constantly.
Sure. So you're talking about some of your the acting genres that you kind of wanted to play in. Are there specific genres that you prefer, or are you kind of looking at it as the world is my oyster and I'd like to take a piece out of everything?
Well, I definitely consider myself versatile. In acting, uni and stuff, like we had to do so many different genres, and I feel at home in so many different ones. But I do definitely have a preference for like horror films or psychological thrillers, action, those sort of more, physically demanding roles. Yeah.
So we could definitely be looking at a future Scream Queen. I mean, not to do any, kind of force anything, but just saying it's a possibility. I mean, if you're into horror, absolutely. So I'm excited to see how that progresses from here. So,
100%. I mean, this is my first feature that I'm cast in. So I feel like I'm just at the very beginning of my career. I'm also writing some stuff at the moment, which, yeah, is in the horror psychological thriller sort of genre. So I'm hoping to get that produced eventually. And yeah, see where that goes.
Well, I did want to ask about that too, because kind of looking through your filmography that you've kind of done writing, you have written stuff, you've edited, you've directed and all that stuff. Have you found that there's another passion maybe out there outside of acting, or is acting, you feel like your primary passion and then everything else is kind of something you're interested in and maybe you might dabble in, but acting's the true passion?
I mean, I think acting is like the true passion for me. That's where I get most, I feel like I get most of my creative, like outlet. But so the course I was on in university really opened my eyes to like the whole world of film. Because I think going into it, I was slightly ignorant as to like how many roles there are and how much goes on behind the scenes before and during and after shooting. And I would first assistant direct quite a lot. And I really enjoyed that sort of planning aspects of it and sort of having that control, because in the actor's position, you have like no control over it at all. You're just there. You hope to do your best. You hope it's edited to make you look good. You hope the lighting is, you're just so out of control. But in those production roles, you're more in control, and it's so fun like exploring those. I got to try out a lot of different things. Like I've done lighting, I've done writing. Writing is amazing because you sort of, I feel like when you're creative, you have so many ideas running through your head and you just want to get them down on paper. And it also opens up a lot of opportunities for yourself if you want to create your own projects. Because I feel like a mistake that some actors do is just sit around and wait for work, when really, if you don't have work right now, you should be creating your own work.
Sure.
Because you have experience, you know what it's like to be directed, how you'd like to be directed, how you'd like to be portrayed on screen, different characters. So yeah, I'm definitely looking to explore more of those roles. I'm working for a producer as well, so I'm learning a lot from him. Yeah.
I definitely wanted to get another person's perspective on it because when I first started trying to get my hand in film, that's what I did. I got a camera and I said, what am I going to do? Let's try this. Let's try that. And I would just do everything. And through the course of that, I found that I leaned toward editing a little bit more. Like that seemed to be a thing that I enjoyed doing. And I think it's because it's like structurally building something and putting it all together. Like all the puzzle pieces are there and you can put it all together and it's going to create something amazing. And if you do it just right, it's going to be really, really good. And you could really screw it up too. So I think just figuring that out fascinated me for some reason.
100%. But I feel like everyone sort of finds their niche.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone can find something within the film industry that they like.
Yeah. And it'll be their strength too. Like I wouldn't say that would be my strength. I would argue that is 100% my strength. Now, some of the other things I can do, and I have a passion for them just the same, but I would always say editing is my strength. That is where I can thrive, easily.
100%. But it's like when you find your thing and what you love, you obviously you gain way more experience doing it because you're doing it so much more. And you're good at it if that is what you lean to normally. And so there are definitely people, like if I am to direct what I'm writing and stuff, I think outside opinions from people who that is their main thing is so important, because it's so easy to get like tunnel visioned as well on certain things, whereas you need others' opinions who have experience doing this and who are not just in your own head with your own ideas. So no, 100%. How long have you been editing for then?
It's been over 20 years now.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
okay.
like it was something I wasn't really sure that I was good at, and it was the only way I even found out about it is I had put together a bunch of short films like in 2004. It was like every month I was doing a short film, just whatever. And I had put together something and and it was a real dark. I don't like the movie. I think it's a pretentious piece of crap at this point. Anyway, but I put it together and I showed it to a bunch of friends, and there was a friend of mine, he was a filmmaker. Like he was really, really trying, had done the film school thing, and he had shot this short film. And after he had watched this thing that I did, he said, would you mind taking a look at this? And I was like, sure. Why? What do you? He's like, I can't figure this scene out. Would you mind taking a crack at it? And I was like, sure. And then just in an hour or so, I put together a scene. I was like, what do you think? And he's like, here, dude, just take the whole thing and edit it. And I was like, all right.
You got down.
And I didn't think anything about it. It was just something naturally. I could see the structure. I could see how it needed to be put together. So.
No, definitely. I think someone has or just people have a natural ability to just see how it's supposed to be. Like with editors, they tend to have that eye for it, where this is how it's supposed to be, because it's more than there's no set structure for how a scene is supposed to be edited. You sort of just have to have the eye for it. And that's the same with DOPs. They sort of just have an eye for what's aesthetically pleasing, what's fitting the story. And some people just really don't have that, and that's fine. But I feel like if you're really to excel in your career path, you should have that sort of eye for what you're doing.
And I think the other thing that works in my favor with it too is I can be very, very detail oriented.
Mm.
So that can be kind of frustrating because you'll look at something and if it doesn't line up to your edit, I'll lose my mind.
Yeah, you're a
Because
bit
I'm
of a perfectionist.
yeah, I try to figure it out and I'm like, oh God, if we could just tweak it ever so slightly. Like there was even, this is how bad it can get. There was a shot that I was doing for the sitcom that I was shooting, and we had to do a pickup shot.
Mm.
The shot that I had done, there was a backpack off in the background, off in this other room, you could see hanging on this hook.
Yeah.
And I didn't think anything about it when we did the pickup. And then I got it back in the edit and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, the backpack. And I was just so upset and I was like, what am I going to do? And everybody around me was like, it's fine. No one's going to notice. It's fine. It's like, I'll notice. I'll know it. So I went out of my way to digitally remove everything in the background and put that backpack in. All this extra work
That's
just
good though. Yeah.
just to satisfy my need for perfection.
But the hard thing about editing though is because like I've tried editing a little bit myself, and you find yourself noticing the small things. You just cannot let it go.
Yeah.
Like it's there and you see it so clearly. And when you screen the film, people might not notice at all. But it's like it's there and that's gonna irk you.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's the same with animation because I've been dabbling in that too, and there are just little details that I know I'm looking for them, but I know no one else is looking for them. Like characters blinking. Yeah. It's a stupid little detail, but I want it there because it feels natural to me and what characters would do.
Yeah.
So it has to be there. If it's not there, I'm going to notice and it's going to bother me, but no one else will. And I've been told that again, just let it go. No one's going to notice, but I will.
But you will.
I will. And I won't let it go.
I feel like thing with perfectionism though, is that it can have its like faults as well. Like, whereas it can like hold you back sometimes. Do you ever find that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because you get stuck in a loop because you can't let it go. You can't focus on anything but that one thing that you get obsessed with it. So sometimes you have to start either stepping away from it, taking a breath so you can get a fresh perspective, and it can help tremendously sometimes.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I have a friend who's also an actor and he owns his own like studio in LA, and I met with him recently and we were talking about sort of our differences because I'm very much a planner to a fault. Where it's like I'll plan and organize and plan and go over all these details, and then I just won't get it done. Whereas he's just like a go just do mindset. Yeah. And so I'm really trying to incorporate that into my life, as in like, okay, it's not going to be perfect. It's not ever going to be like 100% perfect. So just get it out there and just do it. So you actually move forward. It's so easy to get stagnant if you're too hung up on like the details and like the perfectionism of it.
Yeah.
But it's tough. There's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
There's a balance.
Yeah, you definitely have to find that, otherwise you'll drive yourself mad.
Exactly.
Well, and just to throw this into the equation, I've always just gone by the old adage that film mirrors life. Life isn't perfect, so some of those smaller details. Yeah, you're always going to have people that are picking on every little piece of the film, but I feel like to mirror the imperfections of reality just brings you into a film a little bit more, if that makes sense.
No, I love that. That's so nicely put.
So you say you were born out of Norway, but you seem like you're a woman of the world. Like you've been all over. Like, so were you born there and moved early on, or did you live there for a while, or?
Yeah, so I was born in Kristiansand, Norway, which is like as south as you can get, basically. Then when I was like 6, we moved a little bit further up to this place called Oskarshamn, which is like an hour south of Oslo. I've always moved quite a bit. And then when I was like 14, we moved out of the country. So I moved to Spain, in this little place called Arroyo de la Miel, which is like close to Malaga. And then I ended up going to like a British college to do my high school. And then everyone was going to the UK for uni and stuff. And so that's when I moved here. And I'd never been to like I'd never been to Spain before when we moved,
Mhm.
and I'd never been to England before I moved. So it was all very much like an adventure.
So why did they choose Spain? Why did your parents choose Spain?
Well, basically, my mom has arthritis, and
Okay.
so the climate there is just way better for her. I don't function in the heat though. So it was an interesting couple years. It was lovely, but it just feels like you're living in a holiday, and I didn't feel at my most like productive or
So right
you know.
now you say you're in London right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I came here and I studied and I just sort of stayed because I feel like there is a film industry in Norway, but it's very close knit.
Sure.
And I guess it is expanding. It is getting bigger, but I just feel like there are so many more productions just going on every day here in London. Like it's sort of like a little hub for film people around the
Sure.
world, and they all meet here. Same with like LA. Like it's just
Mhm.
like a little film hub. And I just think it's a great place to be especially when starting out and you don't have that many contacts or you don't have that much experience. I feel like this is a really good place to be.
So I've got to ask you about this because you've got this wide array of talents. And there are two here that definitely fit in with what you're doing, but it just they seem so I don't know, dance and martial arts. It just seems like two skills that could easily help you out in this profession.
100%. So I used to dance a lot from when I was like, how old was I? 11, 12, and then I sort of quit when I went to Spain, so 14, but I did some musicals, so I kind
Mhm.
of kept up with the dance a little bit. But there's just something about dance that like it's so giving. Again, sort of like acting. I mean, it's a performance. You sort of just get lost in the music and the movements, and but at the same time you have to remember your lines, which is your choreography. And then martial arts I got into recently, actually. I mean, I've always had this fascination with like combat and being able to defend yourself, and always quite liked anime as well. You know,
Oh
the
yeah.
battles in anime aren't great, so but yes, I recently, my friend has been doing Muay Thai at this local like gym that we have here for years, and she's been like, Jasmine, come on down. And we did staged combat at uni. So we did a little bit with weapons, but I got a certification in like standard unarmed combat.
Mhm.
And then I went on to join my friend doing Muay Thai at the gym. And I've just found a lot of, again, it's almost like therapy where you're
Sure.
like pushed to like a point where you're so exhausted that it's like just you can't hold anything back. Like there was one lesson where I just completely ended up breaking down. So I was so stressed and I was so like freaking exhausted from that lesson. They were just like, keep 30 kicks each side. And I was like, no. But there's such a community to it as well, like both in dance and martial arts. And I mean, yeah, with the genres I want to go into, I feel like it's very helpful.
Sure.
For sure. So I want to develop that more and get better.
Yeah, I definitely think you've got open doors all around because dance is a very specific skill that, I mean, I won't say in film in general, it's not as handy as it would be on stage or something like that. I mean, musicals are kind of a dying genre, as sad as
Yeah.
that is. But, I mean, martial arts, that's action films abound. I mean, you walk in and say, yeah, I can do my own stunts. I can do my own martial arts. Yeah, I got it. I mean, sold, done. That's one less thing you
Exactly.
have to got to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, in like Asian cinema and stuff, like in like Hong Kong cinema and stuff, it's just expected for you to do your own stunts,
Mm-hmm.
which I find very fascinating because then in the rest of the world, I feel like it's not that expected that you do your own stunts. It's more like, yeah, we'll get you a stunt double and everything. And like Hong Kong cinema, that's not a thing.
No,
They have to
God.
do everything themselves, and they're amazing at it. It's so impressive.
So I gotta ask. I mean, you mentioned you've got a passion for anime. What's your favorite anime?
Well, actually, I went as Misa Amane this year. I have my Death Note right here because
Nice.
Death Note got me into anime. I watched it for the first time when I was like, yeah, 13 or something. And this anime made me fall in love with anime. I'm currently watching Black Clover, and I'm watching, is it called Windbreaker?
Windbreaker. I think I've heard that.
Windbreaker.
Yeah,
I started watching Dun Dun Dun, but I'm
I've
only
seen
on the
that.
first
I haven't.
episode. Yeah, because the intro went like super viral, didn't it?
Yeah.
But other than that, I love Psychopaths. So good. Which other ones? Oh, there's so many. What about you? Do you like anime?
Yeah, I've recently got into it because my wife, she was huge into it, and Death Note was, I think, the one that really was our kind of connector because I showed her Akira because that was my favorite film.
Oh, Akira's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
she had never seen it, but she was familiar with some of the more mainstream like Trigun, Naruto, Cowboy Bebop, stuff like that. So I showed her that, and then she was like, "Well, I know of this one called Death Note. I think you ought to like that." I checked it out. I was like, "Oh shit, this is really great." So she's been showing me and introducing me different ones. So
He's a for then.
Yeah.
He's a good one.
The most recent one that we went through is, I won't say the entirety. We kind of went through the core episodes because filler 400 episodes. That's a lot of Naruto. Like the entirety of that. Yeah.
I think I've watched like 20 episodes or something, but like it's ridiculous. Some of the animes just go on for like hundreds or 1,000 episodes. I'm like, where do I even start? Where do I even start?
Yeah,
Like
One
Sailor
Piece.
Moon as well.
Oh god,
Sailor Moon is the only one that I'll watch dubbed. And I had it in the background while I was doing like my art projects and stuff for high school during COVID and stuff. Yeah.
Les, if you've got any questions, feel free to jump in. I feel like I'm
Oh no, you guys have got me lost in thinking about anime I used to watch. So
do you watch anime?
I not as much as I used to, but
No.
my answer is so generic. I love Death Note.
Death Note's amazing. It's generic for a reason, I like to say.
Yeah.
My generic anime though is Dragon Ball Z. Growing up, that was like the staple of my childhood. And then I like kind of one-offs. There is a anime called Hellsing Ultimate that I really like about vampires.
So good.
Yeah,
so
that's
fast. Oh my god, that brings me back.
I would love to see a really well done live action version of that. I think
opinions on live actions though. What do you guys think?
If you do it right, I think it's awesome, but there's ground to be tread there. And
yeah.
I don't like when they get filmmakers to do live action versions of things that have never seen it. A lot of people think that that's a great idea. They're like, oh, they'll put a fresh perspective on it. I think you need the fanboys and the fangirls in that regard because they'll give it the love that it deserves. The Dragon Ball live action movie is a perfect example of that. It's just that's all I can say on that one.
no, but that's the thing. Like, I refuse to watch the Death Note live action, the Netflix one.
Did you watch? Have you seen the Japanese one though?
The Japanese one is amazing.
Japanese one I've not seen. No,
I would recommend that.
Yes,
I would recommend that.
It is very true to the source material, and they put a lot of love into it. So,
well, that's amazing. I mean, that's all you like hope for as a fan watching like an anime you love. You want them to like genuinely care so much about the story and want to do it justice, not just make it a commercial action Netflix series.
Yeah.
You know.
Actually, speaking of this, I just want to backtrack for a second. Talking about, you know, the writing and the directing and getting the tunnel vision as you were referencing. I just wanted to so I guess I sort of want to ask a question here to you. Has the thought of starting your own production company ever crossed your mind? Because I feel like a lot of the films that are coming out as of late that are really worth watching are from a lot of smaller production companies, just because you have more control of what you're doing and you're putting that extra love into it. And while tunnel vision is a risk of, you know, being in charge of everything, having the right team of people around you seems to have a good output. I always reference these films. I know there are a lot of good films out there, but the Terrifier franchise, you know, that's a horror franchise that has been really taking over the world here lately. And you know, he's refused to work with the larger studios so that he has more control. Is that something that you could see yourself doing at some point in time, or would you rather work with larger studios?
I mean, I think maybe a combination of both, because I feel like if you haven't tried it, I mean, obviously I know from other people, like with the lack of control and everything. But I think it would be an interesting like experience working with a larger production company and seeing, because I mean they do have experience. Sometimes it can take like a little bit of the soul out of the project for, you know, financial reasons, and that kind of sucks. But I am definitely like thinking about how I'm gonna approach sort of my future projects that I want to make. If I do want to make my own production company, produce it myself, possibly direct. I feel like the only issue is like directing acting is so difficult, like that duo, because you have to have someone like an assistant director or something, someone there with you to watch you and make sure you're on the same level in terms of like literally everything, because you can't really see what's going on while you're in the scene. And there's so much to like that you need to sort of see. And I think also it just takes a lot more time because you want to rewatch the footage. But yeah, like you said, I think having more control of it over it can sometimes do the project justice.
It's funny how you kind of described that, because we spoke with Lloyd Kaufman, I think a year or so ago, and we kind of had a conversation about that very thing, because James Gunn was one of his proteges, and we see what he's done. You know, I mean, he's head of DC Films now, so it was a question of like, well, what was his focus? What was his goal? And he said he had a goal to be the studio guy. Like he wanted to work with those studios. He knew what he had to do to get there.
Yeah.
There are some filmmakers who don't have it in them to want to do that, because they understand that they have to give up their creative freedom and they don't want to do that. So then you have those people who do their own thing because that's what they want to do. And there's nothing wrong with either path. It's just you have to find your path. And the way he kind of laid it out, it was so eloquent. It kind of had me thinking about my own path, like what I was doing. And I was like, oh, so I went the other way. I went the way, you know, where I was doing my own thing, because I didn't want to give up creative freedom for this and that. So I understand the game, I guess, it needs to be played. And so you kind of teetering a line. I feel like that's probably the smart way to go, is like, you're going to have to give up a few things, but in the long term, you could probably gain some ground.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way to put it, because like it's hard. I feel like I'm still sort of figuring out which path I want to go with things, because a part of me, I love having like my creative control over things. Yeah, I guess it's something I'm still figuring out. If it's possible to do a little bit of both, then I think that would be the ideal thing.
Well, I mean, you say that you've been doing some writing and stuff like that. Do you have, just for the sake of this example, do you have any characters or any kind of stories that you've been kind of developing, kind of that exist in your head, or maybe on a scrap piece of paper?
Well, so I'm currently like something I'm writing now.
Yeah, just something that you say, oh, I've got this character, and this character lives inside my head, and I know all the little things, and maybe they could be a film character one day, but right now they just kind of exist on paper or in my head.
Oh, I feel like there's so many ideas, and you should see my notes app. It's just like random notes that you'd look through this and like think it's a crazy person's notes app, because it's all like scattered and stuff. But I feel like it's always important to write down stuff immediately. And I do have this one story that I've started writing, but that I have a feeling I won't finish in years to come. So I have some other projects that I'm like, okay, I want to make this now. I want to develop this. I want to do this. But then I have this one story about this person that is really just admiring, like the way they enter a room and everyone wants their attention, the sort of like social power that person has. I want to write about that, but I feel like that's a story I'm still like seeing happening in front of me. So definitely some things that I'm like, okay, it's not the time to make this now. Like I have the idea there, I have the baselines, I do want to make this eventually, but this is not a now project. I need to see what's going to happen to this person in their life before I can even finish it.
See, I guess the example that I was kind of looking for here, using that, where you have this passion, you have this idea, and I definitely can agree. I've got ideas abound. There are some that I would be 100%, I would say I don't want anyone to touch what is on the paper. That is it. This is, it's gospel. That's it. But
Yeah.
then there are others I would want some a little bit of creative freedom, or for somebody to add something in because maybe I don't feel like it's good enough, or it's not as developed as it should be. So I like to collaborate where need be, and I think that's depending on what the project is. Because if you've got a very clear vision on what that needs to be, I feel like that's where you need to kind of trust the writer, director, whomever within that situation. But when you can play with other people, I think as an actor, that is something I enjoy doing. When it's not my own
Yeah.
projects, I want to play with other people's stuff because I don't get to.
I think that's the problem with it, because like when it is your own story and your own ideas, you get so attached to them being a certain
Yeah.
way, especially if you have a very strong just vision of how the story is going to play out. Yeah, I think it's definitely easier to play with someone else's material. And if it is your own project as well, and you're like producing it yourself and you're doing all these things yourself, I feel like you know all the stakes of it. You have invested yourself so much money and time, and people times and everything, and you do still have that same respect for other people's projects because they have done the same as you, and you want to do them justice. But it's definitely easier to play around and be more lighthearted about it when it's other people's writing, I think, and story rather than your own.
Have you, as
Yeah.
an actress thus far, I know you've kind of done a number of shorts. Have you encountered any directors who aren't, I guess, as forthcoming with what they want from you? Because I've encountered a few during some auditions where you do what you kind of see on the paper, and then they just kind of look at you with this blank, okay. And it's like, but what do you want?
That's the difficult thing,
You know?
is no notes are good notes.
Yeah.
And trusting that the director says something if they're unhappy with something. And especially having worked with a lot of students or newer directors, it's sometimes hard, especially like in university as well. I just feel like because they were my friends, or because they are students, or maybe is afraid of like hurting my feelings or taking it a new direction, which is just not the case at all. Like, as an actor, you want to hear what the director thinks, and but you sort of also have to just get used to the fact that, okay, if they don't say anything, you just have to trust that you're doing good. You just have to keep doing that. You can play around if you want, and if they tell you to reel it back. But yeah, no, sorry, what was the question again? I just went on rambling.
I guess I was just asking out, like, if there were any directors who didn't quite didn't communicate properly to you as an actress. Like, we're just kind of
Yeah.
letting you go, and you didn't feel like your performance was what it should be because you weren't being guided properly.
Oh, 100%. I feel like, yeah, again, in uni, we had this one specific project where a girl in our year was directing it. And throughout the whole thing, I felt like I was directing myself almost, because there was too much freedom. And I feel like you should give your actors freedom, but if there's too much freedom and they sort of feel left hanging or like left alone or not knowing really what's going on, that's quite frustrating. And looking back at it as well, it's like, I did an okay job, but I feel like in certain scenes, it should have been in a different direction. And especially there was like the one time I really got like a very strong direction from this girl was in an end bit where it was supposed to be this resolution, like moment of peace, sort of like acceptance that things have happened. This character has gotten to where they are now, and it's been tough, but they're fine with it. And I got the direction of be angry. And I was like, why? Why is she angry? Just be super angry, like tear stuff down from the walls. And I'm like, I was asking questions like, why, where is this coming from? Where is this anger coming from? She's just had her emotional release in the scene before, and then now she's supposed to come back and have her like moment where she can breathe and be fine. And like I ended up, because I edited that film as well, and so I ended up just cutting it out, and she was fine with that, cutting it out. But I just feel like if the director isn't entirely sure what they're doing with the story, it can just also just take weird directions that doesn't make sense to the story at all. And so that was quite frustrating. I think, for the whole team,
Mhm.
where there was no explanation for this direction, and like we're all learning. It's fine,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a tough one for sure to just then go and do, because it's like I had no reason to be angry,
Mhm.
and if you don't give someone a reason to be angry, it's like, okay, where do I base this anger in? Why? Why? Yeah, no. How do I build up to being so angry that I'm tearing photos down from the wall and
Sure, yeah.
for no reason? Yeah, it's tough, and you just sort of have to then give yourself a reason or like make up something, and it's just not just a bit inauthentic
Mhm.
when you feel like it's wrong for the story.
Yeah, removing something that doesn't need to be there, I think as someone who does a lot of stuff that you're kind of writing and directing, you're kind of editing on the fly, so you kind of have a nice tight structure. So everything on the cutting room, there's nothing on the cutting room floor because you've edited it before you even shot. But I have dealt
Yeah,
with that, what you're talking about. And I did, when I was first starting, I didn't realize, oh, well, if it doesn't work, I was just putting it in because, well, he didn't tell me.
because it was
Yeah,
shot. Script.
he didn't tell
Yeah.
me to cut it. So I guess I'll put it
Mhm.
in. So yeah, over time, you have to kind of learn that discipline to be like, if it's not working, cut it out. And even
Exactly.
in or in writing, I've gotten to that point where if it's not working, I know it works and it sounds great and it's an awesome scene, but if it's not working, it's got
Yeah.
to go.
I think it's so hard as well when you're writing your own stuff. So I recently worked with this director for this short film, and it's like a proof of concept, sort
Mm.
of, because he wants to make a feature out of it. And it's a great story. It's just like sci-fi horror film. But because he has everything mapped out for the feature, he has all this information, all this background story. There was a lot of like explanation in it that didn't need to be there. That just ruined the tempo of the short film completely. And I think so he was so collaborative about it, and he was like, just tell me exactly what you think. And I was just telling him like that, okay, maybe you should cut down on the information. And he was like, okay, well, what should we cut out? And I just went through the script, cut, 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 cut. And he was completely fine with that. And he took that completely on board because he agreed that it's better to then save that for the feature film and show it rather than talk about it and over explain.
Mhm.
But it's hard to do that with your own project or see that what needs to be cut down, or because you're so passionate and you have this huge idea, it's always hard to sort of dwindle that down
Yeah.
into, edit it,
Mm.
I guess.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So out of
Mm.
your short films, like I said, I've kind of mentioned that you've done quite a few. Are there any that have stood out as like this was a lot of fun? This is the one that I'll always have a memory about, or maybe you maybe wanted to do more with it.
Mm. So there was this one short film that I did called Heart of Stone,
Yeah, I've seen
and
footage
I
of that.
had, yeah,
Hmm.
it's some of it is in my short reel,
Yeah.
I think, but that was really fun to work on. It was, I think, maybe my second short film ever, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
And it was really fun getting to play with sort of just the physical storytelling, the nonverbal storytelling of it. Obviously the costume was very fun to have on.
Yeah.
Fully white, in this like Roman Greek dress. And but I feel like on the day I sort of struggled to connect with what was going on.
Hmm.
And those moments are always hard when you've done your prep, the character, the scene, where you need to get to, and you're just like, why am I not getting there? And it's nothing to do with like the director or like the team or your co-actor. It's just, like it's on you. And I think we managed to like get out something good, but it irks me because I feel like it could have been better,
Sure.
sort of my emotional response. But it's still a very fun project. It got screened in Ealing Film Festival here in London. Which is fun to see.
So would you say
Yeah.
that you have are you able to watch yourself on screen, or is that something that you get self-conscious about?
It's gotten a lot better.
Okay.
It's gotten a lot better. Because it used to be like horrible. And I think with certain projects as well, I'm just like, ooh, I don't want to see that. But I've gotten better at looking at myself more objectively in my performance. And I think if you can do that, it's so important, because that is really how you learn. Like even on the day on set now, I'm like kind of wanting to see the takes to see like how it's looking. what I can like change for myself. Because I mean, you can't really see yourself when you're acting at all. You have no idea. Like you try to have an idea, but you don't really have an idea of what you're doing. And so being able to see that back and be like, oh shit, sort of direct yourself without getting into your head about it, I think is such a useful skill. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like you can watch back your like editing and stuff?
Sometimes I think when it comes to acting, that's where I'm most objective, because I won't say that I've done like a ton of on screen, but I mean I have done quite a bit here and there, so I can be in my head sometimes when I look at a way I've said something or a way I did something. I'm like, man, I wish I'd have taken another take or something.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's something I've always had a passion for it. Kind of I guess the question I had with you growing up, it was something I wanted to do, and then it was just like, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be an actor, and then eventually kind of morphed into different things. And then as I got older and started actually getting into it, I just found that I had passions for other elements to it, because I used to write all the time, same as I kind of still do now. So I've always had it. It's just I didn't know where my strengths lied. And with acting, I'd say, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm all right. I feel like my strengths would probably be more voice acting, because that's where my strengths lie.
You do have a very strong voice.
And I can do, Lester can attest, I can do voices. So
very many.
And
Wait, which one? So what's your best one?
Well, Lester, you'll have to be the...
I like all your voices. If you know Family Guy at all, he does a great Peter Griffin.
I do Peter Griffin a lot, because sometimes when you're watching cartoons all the time, you start to pick up on all these things. And I mean, that's where it all starts. You're watching cartoons, you just love all this stuff, and there you go.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I wish I was better at impressions like that, because it's so fun to hear. I try my hardest to do like an Eric Cartman impression, but it just fails miserably.
Yeah, no, that one's a little outside of my will.
It's tough. No, that was amazing. That was great.
Yeah, no, it's. I've always had these voices in my head, and I've always just loved trying to impersonate other people. So when voices come about, and of course, I think the one that amuses people the most that I do a lot is, everybody does a Christopher Walken, but sometimes when you're doing it, you put in these little idiosyncrasies, how you move,
Okay. That's really good.
I will say
little things.
I will say this too. Short story real quick. The whole reason Stephen and I started this podcast was because I had a script that I wanted him to take a look at for an extra set of eyes. He kind of liked what I was doing. He asked if I would take a look at something for him. We've sort of looked at each other's work. We're working on we've kind of reached a standstill at this point, but we're working on a short film that we want to send to some festivals and things of that nature. But out of nowhere, we just decided it'd be fun to do podcast, see what comes of it. We've both got a lot of opinions on things, a lot of things that we would like to ask people. But back to my other point, because I'm all over the place. I do some writing in my free time. I've not done as much editing as Stephen. Stephen does not give himself enough credit with the work he does, because he does great work. But I will say this, I have been behind the camera. I've been in front of the camera. I think it is easier to watch yourself when you are playing a role that you like to play. I have played a victim in at least 4 different projects. I hate that. I hate dying in a film. It's the worst thing for me. But when I get to play the villain, I'll watch that, because I have a lot of fun with that. And I feel like when you find a role that you like to fit into, it's a lot easier to watch yourself in that role. So
that makes sense. I feel like that's like sort of a double-edged sword though, because yes, you can have a lot of fun with this one particular role, but if it's a role that you like really care about and you sort of overthink, you're watching like every minuscule little thing that you're doing and judging it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really hard one. If it's a role you really like, you want to do really, really well, and then you're looking at all these extra little things. Whereas I feel like if it's a role that not that I don't care about, but where I don't feel like it's as much of a stake.
Yeah.
It's almost easier because you're more relaxed. You're able to have way more fun with it. And then it's easier to watch back because you're like, I'm sure it'll be good.
That's very true.
I'd say for an example that I can point to on something that I actually did perform, there was a show that I did for YouTube. My character in that show was meant to be like the best friend, kind of the comic relief kind of buddy. You know, he's just there. He's the sidekick kind of guy. And I wrote this one episode that was kind of a standalone for that character to be like, what is his life like? Because we're always following him, coming over to this friend's house and hanging out with him. What's a day to day for this guy? Yeah. And it was a very personal, kind of deep, emotional story. So I had to tap into a different part of that. And yeah, it feels different, but it's also trying to keep the essence of who he is still, because I don't want to change that character. He's still got to be the same guy. Yeah. So yeah, that was tricky. So I can definitely see how that could be a problem. Yeah.
100%. I feel like as soon as you're able to take the pressure off it, that's when like find a little gold in your performances, you know. But that's way easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because you feel like there are so many things that you're thinking about, and is the director gonna like this? Am I gonna like this? Are people watching gonna like this? I feel like a worry of mine always is like if my character is likable or not. Even as like, because I enjoy playing villains and sort of like meaner characters, and I'm hoping to get to do more of that in the future. But at the same time, even villains or mean characters have to be somewhat likable or somewhat relatable, or have some sort of thing where people can like empathize with them. And that's always so hard. Especially
with someone that you're supposed to be rooting against. How do you get the audience to connect with that person?
Yeah, or even if you are playing the character that people are supposed to like, then it's like a huge pressure on, oh shit, is my character likable or not? Because there are so many films where the main character is so unlikable and it ruins the whole film, and it's so frustrating because you're like, oh, shit, this could have been so good, but I hate the cast in this particular story together. So I think that's like one of my biggest worries always. It's like, is my character going to be likable to the audience?
I can understand that. Not to get any kind of gossip, so you don't have to list any names or anything like that, but are there any actors, because we've talked about it, Les and I have, are there any actors that you just cannot watch? Like there's just whatever it is, like you can't even explain it. There's just something like you just do not like that actor and you cannot watch their movies.
I think that's a hard question because I feel like there aren't any actors that I can't watch in every single movie. It's more of that's the wrong casting and it's horrible to watch.
Or perhaps maybe you're just not a fan of their work.
Just not a fan.
Example. I'll throw out an example. Yeah. Nicolas Cage. I can respect he's an interesting actor, but he's just not my cup of tea. You know, I got to take him in doses.
Actually, I think, I love Zendaya. She's gorgeous, beautiful. I think she should model. Like, I think, because I grew up watching her on Shake It Up, and I feel like Disney Channel has such a way of molding their actors into a very certain type of acting or a very certain type of character, which they just never managed to shake it off. So even like Miley Cyrus, I love Miley Cyrus, but when she came back to do the Black Mirror episode, all I could see was Hannah Montana. Yeah. And same with Zendaya. I just keep seeing her old, like, Shake It Up, cool girl character. And it's slightly frustrating for me personally.
I can see that, though. I mean, as far as having those connections, because I don't remember seeing her in anything prior to Spider-Man. So I don't have that. I don't have that connection, so I guess I don't see it. So I can see where you can see it easily.
I think Spider-Man, she's well cast. Like, I feel like she really fits into that universe. But thing is, in like Dune,
Dune, yeah.
or other things, I just feel like it's just not the right casting for her, or I don't know.
She did seem a little out of place in Dune. I didn't really think about it,
Right?
but yeah, there's something about it, just something. I don't, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not really quite hitting the mark for me personally. But I think she's great, and I think she has a lot of strengths. I just maybe she's just cast in some of the wrong roles, like in the new Star Wars movies as well. What's her name? The lead actress,
Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley. Yeah,
Mm.
gorgeous, very talented. I didn't like her character, and I don't know if that's down to the writing or how it was performed or how it was directed. But
I would put a lot
he
on
was
the
an
studio.
example of a character that's supposed to be likable that just was not likable. I was not rooting for her. I wanted Kylo Ren to fucking just say fuck off and take over the world, you know? But yeah, and also in the recent, like, is it called Rebel Moon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder's Netflix.
Zack Snyder one. Yeah. Again, the lead actress, gorgeous. The character was not likable at all, and it was such a huge problem for me because I was just watching it and I was just like, yeah, not to talk too much shit because they're all talented people. And
well, it's hard to associate some actors with other things. I was gonna with the Zendaya thing.
yeah,
She was also in a show called Euphoria that's on Max, and that's a very adult show. So to see her
which, to be fair, I haven't seen yet.
to see her doing the things in that show that she does is off-putting because you remember her from the Disney Channel. While everyone's sharing their actors that they're not too keen on in certain roles, I am not a big Shia LaBeouf fan. I will put that out there.
Fair.
And the only reason for that is because I remember him as the annoying little brother in the Disney show Even Stevens.
Okay.
So whenever I see him in something, I just expect him to be annoying. And it pulls me out of it. At the same time, I feel like sometimes that can help certain actors, and I'll let you know this is a running joke on the show. People normally have to take a shot if they hear me mention this on the show.
Oh God.
I'm a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. It's the reason It's the reason that I love horror films. It's the reason that I got into writing. It's the reason I got obsessed with film. Robert Englund is synonymous with Freddy. You can't have one without the other. That's the way that people have always seen it. But he's always been lucky in his career that he's sort of stepped into other horror roles. And they've used the fact that he's Freddy to sort of flaunt that a little bit. So for some actors, I feel like that does work to a degree. It's just like whenever you watch a movie about aliens of any kind. I mean, we even had the movie Paul a few years ago. You expect to see Sigourney Weaver somewhere. So I feel like sometimes it lends itself to be useful for actors, but other actors get stuck in a spot where it's just that you can't see them as anything other than that annoying character or that innocent character that they played before. Like Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana, like Nicolas Cage just being Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. Well, 100%. Like, you can definitely like work against your work for you. Like, that's the thing, and especially for newer actors, you want to find your typecast because it's way easier for you to like actually get cast again and again and again if you find your typecast and you do your typecast good. And that's sort of like a way into the industry, and then you can try to branch out and do different things because you don't want to be stuck in that. Some people are, and I mean, it gets you work. You get to like work on sets and do what you love, and even though it might be frustrating not getting to do something different sometimes. But I think you can 100% work for you really well, like if you find your niche and what you're good at.
So tell us about this movie, the R.I.P. Man, that you're in.
Yes.
So what is it about?
So it's about this friend group who recently have lost a friend to this killer called the R.I.P man. And it is basically them sort of trying to piece together and figure out why this killer is coming after them and taking them out one by one.
And you are the main protagonist in this film?
Yes. So I play Clarissa.
Okay.
She is the girlfriend of Maximus. No, that's the actor. Sorry. The character's name is can't remember his character's name right now, but Max plays Clarissa's boyfriend in this. So she is, I really like her as a character, and I was very excited when I got casted as her, because she is such a like strong, intelligent, and caring person. I feel like there's so much depth to her, and throughout the story you really see, you know, how far she's willing to go for her friends and her loved ones, and how she carries a lot of worry but she doesn't really want to like talk about it, or she doesn't really want to put her worries on other people, but at the same time I feel like she takes on so much and thinks so much that is sort of like slips out sometimes, which I feel like I can really relate to, where it's like you just have too much going on and then all of a sudden you end up lashing out on someone.
Were you familiar with the director when you got cast, or?
No. So Jamie, actually he has a background in working in film and background as an actor, and everything, and he's recently gotten into directing. So his previous project, The Cellar, is like his directorial debut, and it's doing really well. It's doing festival rounds right now, and it's getting some awards, and it's doing amazingly. And so I found the casting on Mandy, and I applied for it, and then it was a really funny like audition kind of thing. I was super excited about the project because it is Scream inspired, but a new take on everything,
right,
basically, and that is right up my alley, as you can tell. And so the audition was basically, we were just like 6 out of 400 actors, I think, that applied, who got invited for like a drink at a pub. And we sat down, all of us, and spoke about the script. And they sort of got to see Jamie and Rice, the producer, got to sort of just see who we were and how we interacted with people. And I think it was a great audition because like the cast now, we have so much chemistry. It feels like we've been friends forever.
That is awesome.
The only person I didn't meet until on the day was Max, who is playing my boyfriend. And I was a bit worried about that. But it has all like worked out really well. And I think, you know, the story, it carries themes of, you know, friendship, revenge. It touches on like the healthcare system that is just completely failing worldwide currently. And I think the friendship, that group, is so important and integral to the story, that they get along, and that there is chemistry between this group. And I feel like they've really managed to achieve that through good casting. So
I have a question from an acting perspective, because I've never really thought to ask this of anybody. And I guess I want to get somebody's perspective on it. How easy or difficult is it for you to act romantically with someone else, especially if it's someone you're not familiar with, or maybe not, you don't know that well?
It's, you know, it would be easy to say it's just like, oh well, it's just with any other emotion, you just like imagine the character's circumstances and their relationship, and then you just get put into that. But it is a little bit more difficult than that, because I have done a couple of projects where it wasn't anything like intense kissing or anything, but we were supposed to be partners.
Yeah.
And sort of it felt a little bit awkward between me and my co-actor, and not in like a good kind of awkward way. And it's hard to sort of I feel like in those situations I just try to imagine my own past relationships or like feelings that I would have for someone that I like, and just try to apply that to this person. But say now with Max, I think we get along really well, and I think we both really just feel comfortable around each other. So definitely like if you have chemistry with someone, it helps. Like it pretty much does the job for you. And just the communication as well between the two people, of like what's okay, how are you feeling after this scene? You can have some banter in between the scenes, get to know each other, have a good laugh. I think it helps. It goes such a long way. But it is slightly awkward. It is always slightly awkward, I think, because it
Yeah.
is such a like, if you're kissing someone or having like an intimate conversation with someone, it's tough like having someone watch that. But I guess the more you do it as well, the more you get used to it.
Sure. No,
Yeah.
I did. I never did anything like you said, the kissing or anything like that. But just
Yeah.
having to interact and having to be intimate with someone who was not someone that I was intimate with ever, it was difficult. And I figured
Yeah.
at one point I had to like I came to her and I was like, look, we just need to sit down and just kind of work through some of this, just because I wanted it to feel natural that we're holding hands. I didn't want it to feel like we're afraid to touch each other. I wanted it to feel as natural as can be. So I
Yeah.
wanted to break any kind of tension out of that. So I was like, let's just spend time together for an hour or so, just holding hands, walking around, whatever, until it just feels natural. And
That's a really good thing to do. Yeah.
yeah, it was. I don't know. I don't know why we get into our heads about it.
No, but it is uncomfortable because it is like people have boundaries, and like touching someone who's a stranger feels wrong because
Yeah.
you have your personal space with strangers, and you're sort of breaking that. And so like with Max on set, we spoke like a little bit before the shoot and stuff, but then all of a sudden we were just like supposed to sit there and hold hands and be like madly in love, and he was supposed to be my support system through this difficult time. And I mean, I've never experienced it where it just went so like naturally, like it felt natural like right away. And I think because we had that communication of like, oh, is it okay if I hold your hand? Is it okay if I touch your leg? Stuff like that. We weren't worried about any of that in the scene. Because I feel like if you're worried about it, that's when it's awkward because you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything that's not okay, or I don't, you know.
Yeah. So, how far are you into filming the R.I.P. Man currently?
So we've actually only done 1 day of filming.
So just one day. Okay.
Yeah. So we shot like a few scenes a couple of weeks ago now. So we're shooting down in South England,
Hmm.
in Worthing. So like the scenery there is gorgeous. It's like this pier, and it's comparable to Brighton, I'd say.
Okay.
I haven't been to Brighton myself, but it's comparable to Brighton, I'd say. But yeah, so we only shot 1 or 2 scenes so far. And so I feel like it's going to be exciting getting into more sort of like the action-packed scenes that we will be doing.
So without giving away anything, do you have any scenes coming up that may be super bloody, gory? Anything that you might have to be covered in
Well, I hope
gallons
so.
of blood?
I hope so. Yeah, no, I think it's always really fun to shoot those kind of scenes where someone's getting murdered, or you're getting chased, or there's definitely going to be some murdering and chasing in all of our near futures who are working on that, which I'm very excited about. What I do really like about this killer, the R.I.P. man, is that after he's killed his victims, he pulls out all their teeth and keeps them as like a souvenir. And this is because he has this like rare condition called I have it written down, and I'm gonna butcher this name, but it is called anhedonia. So it's called anodontia. Probably butchered that, but basically you're born with no teeth. And so this killer there's quite a backstory to him, and he does have a slight connection to this friend group, and there is a reason why he's going after them. And I think them trying to find that out it's going to be an exciting watch, I think.
So we haven't really touched on it, but we know that you have a love for horror, considering you have a little ghost face back there. Would you say Scream is your all-time horror franchise favorite, or do you have another one that holds that?
My all-time favorite, so slasher-wise, is probably Scream. Like I rewatched the first one yesterday, and it's just such an oldie but a goodie. And that's also why I was so excited to work on the R.I.P. Man, because it is sort of in similar lens, I'd say, but completely original. But yeah, I think my favorite horror movie ever is Suspiria, the 70s one.
I
But I
saw that
don't
you
think
did a
so.
short of that for your student
Yes.
film. Yeah.
Yeah, for my graduation project, I did one of the scenes, but I used a script from the new Suspiria
Hmm.
because I hadn't seen it at the time. Watched it now, and it's a great remake, but I mean, nothing can beat the original.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I'm just obsessed with that film. It's just a piece of art, in my opinion. Like the heightened performances, the soundtrack, the murders are
Mm.
gorgeous. If I can say that,
Yeah.
it's just so artistic. The lighting, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
The music alone, yeah, the music alone is probably the thing that I've taken away from it more than
It's
anything,
incredible. It's incredible.
because it's a score that I can always come back to and just play. Because Goblins, I don't know, just it's weird and creepy and just got an energy to it that I love. I love.
It's so unique and
Yeah.
like uniquely terrifying,
Hmm.
sort
Yeah.
of. And I mean, a good soundtrack is like so important. It makes or breaks a movie, I think.
100%.
Mm.
So, are there any franchises in the horror genre that you would love to maybe possibly work on at some point, if you had an opportunity?
I mean, I think the thing with franchises is that like I feel like a lot of them have just been done to death already.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm kind of hoping that, if the R.I.P man does well, that maybe this could become a franchise. But yeah, I'm hoping that like the R.I.P man could eventually be a franchise that could be very exciting for people and that people could become invested in. Because it does have those like slasher tropes that people love, but with a whole new concept to it. Sort of like, so it's nothing like Terrifier at all, but sort of how Terrifier has sort of blown into this huge franchise now. I'm hoping that the future will be for the R.I.P. man. So I think it's a really strong concept and strong characters within it that could be made again and again, I think.
Do you have a preference on your horror as far as, I guess, how it's presented? Do you like the slow burn suspense horror? Do you like typical slasher horror? Do you prefer the gory, ultra gory Terrifier types, or does it matter? It's all good.
I mean, I'd say it doesn't matter. It's all good because I'll watch anything. I think I'm more so leaning towards sort of slow burn psychological horrors. Like I love Mother.
Hmm.
I love just Darren Aronofsky's work in general. He's
Yeah.
incredible. And the way he works with his actors and pushes them to the brink, I find so interesting. And Mother was such a like horrible watch, like in the best way, where you were just sat throughout the whole movie with this uncomfortable feeling of just wanting to, scream. And I think it's done so well. The fact that a movie it's not real can make you feel that for the whole duration of the film is incredible.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What do you prefer normally, movie wise?
Horror in any way that I can get it into my system, in all honesty.
Yeah.
I've grown to appreciate the slow burns a little bit
Mm,
more. Quite a while back, we did an episode of horror films that everybody really loves that we just weren't fans of. And
fair. Yeah.
I'm sure I got a lot of hate for it. The original, not talk right today, apparently. The first time I watched The Shining, it just wasn't for me.
What, really?
I came back to it though, and
Yeah.
now that I have a little more patience for those things,
Yeah.
I've grown to appreciate it. Here lately, I've been big on the supernatural stuff, especially some indie films. I'm a slasher guy at heart. A good slasher film, even if it's not the best, even if it's the cheesiest thing you could ever imagine, just give me it, and I will watch it, and I will enjoy it because there's just something about slashers that just they hold a big place in my heart. And I like I said, I think a lot of that has to do with Nightmare on Elm Street. I was a Scream guy, um,
Mhm.
back in
Okay.
back in the day. We're a little upset with how the franchise. Steven and I have discussed that on the show too. We're a little upset with some of the things that happened and the franchise kind of shifting gears again. We were
Sure.
hoping that some stories were going to be told that didn't get to be told.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big slasher guy, supernatural, but I will partake of any type of horror film that is out there. Suspiria the
Well, what's
remake
so
is
great about like yeah, what's so like great about slashers though is that they don't have to take themselves too seriously.
yeah.
I feel like that's a huge thing nowadays where like every movie has to be this revolutionary 3 hour long masterpiece.
Mhm.
Whereas sometimes you really just want to sit down and watch an entertaining movie that doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, and a perfect example of that is we had talked about there's a movie called Hellfest. I don't know if
Mm,
it didn't
I'm not seeing
it didn't reinvent the wheel. It's just a typical slasher. It's about a group of friends who go to a big haunted attraction and they get stalked by a real killer.
that. Mm,
Doesn't reinvent the wheel. It has some of the classic tropes in it.
sure.
Is it the greatest movie that's ever been made? By no means. But you know what you're expecting. And it's a fun
Yeah.
it's a fun ride. And the supernatural stuff I do enjoy too quite a bit. Um
Mm,
I'm a little ashamed to say I haven't really gotten to watch any really good supernatural horror films in a while. But again, I think that all just stems from Nightmare on Elm Street because it's the best of both worlds. It's a slasher and it's got the supernatural aspect, which is why I enjoy that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to blather on here too much. Steven, you go ahead and communicate.
I mean, horror in all forms I can take and leave. However, as long as it's a well-told story, I'm down for it. I don't care if it's a slasher. I don't care if it's creature feature, supernatural, you name it. I'll watch it. I'll love it. You know, but it's got to be done well. It's got to be entertaining in some way. And we talked about this, and I don't think I've told you this, Lester, because I listened to this on another podcast. I'm gonna bring it up here now. I gave an exclusive on another podcast. How dare I? But I was talking about this, and I meant no disrespect. Okay, follow me on this. I mean this with love, all the love in my heart. But Friday the 13th, that entire franchise is trash. Good trash. Trash I love, and I would revel in it all day. But it's trash.
I think that's fair though. Like I have my guilty pleasure movies being Twilight, where it's just so bad. It's so bad that it's just so enjoyable.
Yeah.
And there are movies coming out now as well where they're just horrible. Like Uglies on Netflix. I'm sorry, that was terrible, but it was something about it that is so enjoyable because it is so bad. Where you're just like, what the fuck is this? But I got some sort of enjoyment out of this being so bad.
I think I might have you both beat.
Oh, what?
Give me all the Tremors movies back to back to back, and I am the happiest guy in the world.
Those are solid.
Even the bad.
Wait, which
CGI.
one?
Tremors. Have you ever seen Tremors?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you're in for a treat then.
Oh
It's an
God.
amazing creature feature. Giant worms that live underground, and
Oh,
the vibration.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon's in it. It's amazing.
what the fuck?
It's so
Okay,
bad it's good. And they keep transforming into different things. It's just
the first one is good.
The first one is great.
Good. Yeah, the first
yeah.
one is phenomenal.
It's solid. But even all of the sequels, and I mean all of them.
They're really surprisingly good.
Yeah.
You know, for
how ridiculous the concepts are.
there's maybe one weak link out of the entire franchise, and I would say that's 4, and even that is watchable. It's not a
That's
bad
the one. Is that the
movie.
one where they go back in time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But beyond
that's
that-
probably the only one. But I mean,
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I would definitely recommend the first 2.
Sounds great.
and if you like them, go through the entirety, because you'll be sitting there going, "Why am I watching this?" But you'll be like, "Why can't I look away though?"
No, that's sort of like Sharknado as well.
Oh
You're
my
just
God,
watching it
yes.
and you're like, what the fuck? But you're
Yep.
like, yes, more.
Zombie Tsunami. Did you guys ever see that?
Good God.
No.
Yeah, that was on TV the other day, and I was like, I'll give it a little bit of a watch. And it's such a ridiculous concept,
God.
but you're just like,
Yeah.
what were they thinking when they made this? But there's just something appealing about it. I don't know what it is.
They're all sharing the same drugs in the sci-fi or asylum. No, it was asylum. I'm sorry. They're the ones doing it. They got some good stuff over there, man.
Ugh.
Coming up
Yeah.
with zombie tsunamis and shit.
The were sharks. That was great. Anyways,
Anyway, Les, you got any more questions for this young lady?
hell, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right at the moment. Oh, I have a question that's been hitting my mind a lot recently because I've seen some interviews about it, and I'll get an opinion. You're starting out, you're sowing your oats or whatever you want to say, however you want to say it. But
Yeah.
a lot of performers say that horror as a genre is a stepping stone genre. What are your thoughts on that? Because I firmly disagree with that sentiment that it's a stepping stone genre.
I think it really depends how you approach it. Because yes, it can be. It definitely can be. I spoke to a director recently and he said that like that horror is the best genre you can do because it shows such range. Like it shows a lot of range within your performance because you have to be terrified, you have to be crying, you have to be scared, you have to be laughing or have fun. Um, and I think, I mean, just for example, like Mikey Madison,
Mhm.
Sean Baker just watched Scream. Is it 4 or 5 or 6? I can't remember the newest one.
4, I think she was 5. I'm sorry. That's the
5,
one she was
yeah.
in, yeah.
Yeah. So Sean Baker apparently he said when he introduced Honora that he watched her in Scream and was like, that's the performer I've been looking for. I need to work with her. And then now they've gone on to do Honora, which is honestly amazing, amazing film. And for a lot of actors, I feel like they're using it as a stepping stone, which is fair enough. I mean, me personally, I love horror movies and I'd love to do like a range of different genres and everything. But I think horror movies will always be like near and dear to my heart. And I think they're so fun. You can have so much fun while being chased by a killer, or you can have so much fun in between takes with like the blood and the costumes and the lighting. And there's so much more creative freedom to it, I think, than a lot of other genres that have to be very realistic and very serious. And yeah.
Well, I have a question for you as an actress doing horror. Knowing that it is a very taxing job to do in the horror field. I mean, we've seen performers like Mia Goth knock it out of the park and then yet not get any kind of recognition for it. Do you feel, or how do you feel about how, I guess, the world views horror, even though we see good performances can come of it?
I think it's a little bit of an underappreciated genre that's, again, not taken as seriously as other genres, perhaps. I think for certain projects that can be frustrating. Like, it's like with comedies as well. They're just generally not taken as seriously as a drama or a crime thriller, or even I feel like sci-fi has more sort of not recognition, but like, or not respect, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, like people would kind of put it a tier above.
yeah, probably. And maybe it's because, horror is easy to do, like budget wise. You can make a really low budget horror good. But it's such a hard genre as well, or like to actually get good. What are you guys' thoughts on that, sort of?
I think it's a shame. I don't think that any genre should be outcast just because, well, the content's not as good as this over here in the drama section or over here in this musical section. I mean, art is art, and you have performers who are giving their all and they're putting their best foot forward. So you could give the best performance of your life in the R.I.P. Man, but no one's going to look at it and they're going to be like, well, it's a horror movie. Who cares?
Yeah,
And that's unfair.
I feel like, 100%. And I feel like production companies like A24 just become so popular. Like, people watch the films if it's an A24 movie now, just as people would watch a Marvel film just because it's Marvel. And I feel like that is sort of bringing so many more horror films to light, and more independent, smaller things to light. And so I think production companies like that, who have managed to get such a foot within like sort of the commercial commercialized world of cinema is really like bringing those projects more justice than they would have received without having someone like A24 there.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely frustrating. Frustrating.
Well, and to add to that, just real quick, I honestly think if you look back at the history of horror films, Wes Craven's biography actually talks about it quite a bit. A lot of critics and big studios compared them to snuff films, and they were always looked down upon, and they still are today. It's not as in your face as it used to be with how they put them down, but not shining light on them is sort of their way of just saying, yeah, we don't look at horror films because that's a subject matter that we just don't want the public to be made aware of. The public's aware of horror films. We don't see horror films. We don't make them because we're bad people. You know, horror fans and people who make horror movies are some of the nicest people that you will meet in the world. And they
100%.
They understand that the reason that horror films are even made is so that you can go somewhere safe, whether that be a theater or sit down in your front room. You can watch something scary, get that adrenaline rush, feel that fear in a safe space because the world's a scary enough place.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go off on this tangent again. Have you seen Hereditary?
I have, yes.
Okay. Toni Collette should have been nominated for an Oscar for her performance in that film. I don't care what anybody says.
She was amazing. That dinner scene.
Yes. That scene alone. She should have been nominated for some kind of award for that film. And even if she didn't win, just to get that sort of notice would have been phenomenal. The last time that a horror film, I think, actually won an Oscar or got nominated, I think we actually looked it up, was The Exorcist. And I think it was for lighting or makeup or something insane like that.
Yeah.
But when I hear people say that it is strictly just a stepping stone, I agree with you. You know, for some people it is a stepping stone, but it's a genre that has really become its own. And I think people kind of oversee that sometimes. And I've always wanted opinions from people on it, especially people that are in the field. So I appreciate you giving your input on that. But anyways.
Of course. Yeah, no, but it is such an interesting thing that I feel like isn't spoken about enough, how horror is sort of overlooked. And but I think, I don't know, maybe the top executives are just thinking, look at these cuckoo people making up cuckoo stories, Whereas there is so much creativity to horror. You can build a whole like universe, sort of like, how people are into, superheroes and they have their whole universe. I mean, horror has so much potential to become a universe like that, or they do have universes like that. They're just not as popularized as, like, say, Marvel superheroes and stuff. But people have so much love for the horror genre, and there's so much you can do within it. And I think the thing with horror is that it explores deeper themes that everyone struggle with, like universal fears.
Funny you say universal. That was they were the progenitors of the whole thing. If you think about it, they did their universal monsters all crossed over. They were the originators of the cinematic universe and horror.
Yeah,
all things,
exactly.
So.
Hey, and look at it this way: we are sort of getting a new horror universe, the new Puniverse from all those guys making the, which. Real quick, I don't know if anyone has seen this, but they are doing a new Pinocchio horror movie.
I saw it.
Did you see the fun little tidbit though? So not only did they get Richard Brake to play Geppetto in the movie, guess who is going to be Pinocchio's conscience?
I have no idea.
None other than the man of everyone's dreams, Robert Englund.
Okay.
They're getting some big name actors in the horror community,
really fun,
associated with it, and it's gonna be a ride. I'll just say that. But I don't have anything else, even if you don't.
I don't.
No, that sounds great. I need to actually. I haven't watched the films from the universe. so
haven't
far.
either.
And I really need to get on that because it looks like it looks really fun.
The
And it's such a cool like concept as well because that's what I used to watch to calm myself down after a horror movie when I was younger.
See, I love that.
I just check on some Winnie the Pooh to like calm myself down after horror movies. They're just completely ruining that for me.
There's a good question, real quick. Here's a quick question. What is one horror movie from your childhood that still to this day, just the thought of it freaks you out still? Is there one in particular that like really scared you when you were a kid?
I think so. Me and my best friend at the time, we were like the weirdos who would show everyone in their class like scary movies and scary videos online and freak everyone out. And somehow we still had friends and were somehow popular. I don't know why. But I remember like there were clips from like The Ring that really freaked me out. Just the coming out of the TV. And there was like a short on YouTube as well that I remember so vividly. And I think it was inspired by like The Ring or Bloody Mary or something like that. And I just remember it freaking me out so bad. And of course we showed everyone to freak them out as well. But yeah, I can't actually remember it, which is so sad because I remember it so vividly, the way she was like either coming out of the TV or there was one where she went down the stairs and it was like all dark in the basement and all of a sudden someone was standing there in the dark. And I just remember it so vividly. Yeah.
Well, Jasmine, it was wonderful having you here with us. And
a lovely conversation, you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you back next time. You're promoting another film that you got going on. We'll keep an eye on your career and maybe we'll have you back sometime.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you. So,
Ramblers, what'd you think about Jasmine? Are you excited to check out our movie, The R.I.P. Man? Let us know on social media at Horror Ramblings. If you got more to say and the tweet's just not going to cover it, send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Discord, you can find us on Instagram. You can help us grow the show by leaving us a 5-star review in your favorite podcasting app and see if we posted up any questions and polls over on Spotify. And you can find everything you need over at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes down below. We'll even put some links down below for Jasmine where you can find some of her stuff and even the link to the Indiegogo for the R.I.P. Man. So all down below.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there and look out for the R.I.P. Man.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.